Hello, good morning, good day, happy Monday. Welcome back to yet another fun episode on Monday Science. I'm really nervous for this episode because we're talking about slugs, people. We're talking about slugs. Now, this episode has no structure because it's been quite hard for me to put this together. Okay, so if you tuned in, if you are following Monday Science on Instagram, which is at Monday Science, or me on Instagram at Dr Bahijja Raimi-Abraham, you'd have seen Sunday's sneak peek where I talked about my irrational fear. Except, look, I don't think it's irrational, but anyway, we'll talk about that. My fear of slugs. My fear of slugs started. I just want to. Sorry, this is so nervous. Okay, firstly, even just getting the image for this episode, and I had to type in slug, and all the pictures that came up, I was so traumatized. I'm actually eating a Mr. Freeze lollipop. I can't remember what flavor. Hold on. This is nondescript excessive sugar flavor. I've got some coping mechanism things here. So I've got this Mr. Um Freeze pop to guide me through this episode. But even like just having to go through talking about talking about slugs and reliving everything, this is really difficult for me. So again, okay, so what I wanted to talk about was slugs. I don't like them. I'm going to talk about when the fear started and then why I then thought I had an irrational fear of slugs because of what I felt they could potentially do. But then it turns out it wasn't irrational because there are jumping slugs out there. Sorry, this episode is going to be a mess. Okay, this is me in my raw form. Okay, so I went to school in North Wales. I went to school Rydal Penrose. Rydal Penrose. It'll help if I can say it. I'm so nervous. Okay, I went to school Rydal Penrose Girls Division, which is in Colwyn Bay. I used to understand very little Welsh because my house matron was Welsh and she used to sing us Welsh songs and Welsh lullabies. Very interesting time in my life. But so it was a boarding school. It was the same school my mum and her sisters went to, and in it so Rydal Penrose Girls Division is no more. I ended up going to they closed down the girls division and then merged that with the co-ed division. But the girls division had the main school, um, and then you had to walk over the hockey field to get to the boarding house that I was in, which was Mac House, and there was Mac and York, which were opposite each other. Okay, why am I giving this background? So I was so I oh my gosh, this is such a hard episode for me to do. Okay. So when we would finish, school, you would walk across the hockey pitch and there was a path across the hockey pitch and then you would get to Mac house, my boarding house, and there's a swimming pool there. And so I started my school in the winter months. And I don't know if slugs like the cold. I don't think they do. I don't know. But all I remember was walking from the main school to Mac across the path in the hockey field. And I just, I would you'd be walking and then you would just, sorry guys, trigger warning, but then you would be squashing something. And I never understood what was going on, but it was just really traumatic because you wouldn't know what you were stepping on. It was just horrible. And then some of the older girls who were so lovely and so sweet would carry me on their backs because I would scream and just like run across. I mean, an FYI, I actually was very good at athletics and I got like loads of awards for athlete of the year in school, probably training from running across the hockey pitch, being scared of stepping on slugs. But anyway, what would then happen is as I'm walking across the hockey pitch to get to school, to the boarding house, sometimes you'd see like a glistening of something, and it'll be these black or brown or green slugs. Oh my gosh, it was so traumatic. So anyway, that was where the fear of slugs came. And you would think, because I was living in London before, so you would think I hadn't seen slugs in London. But in all honesty, I don't think I had seen a slug. Just a background, so those who don't know, I was born in Nigeria. I came to the UK when I was 6. I also lived in Trinidad for a little bit, and then at some point also lived in St. Lucia, but not like all the time. So it was shuttling between London and St. Lucia. So it's not that I wasn't in an environment where I couldn't have seen slugs, namely in the UK. In Nigeria, I don't remember there weren't slugs in Sorry, this is a very like sweeping statement, but I didn't see any slugs in Nigeria. I didn't see any slugs in Trinidad. I did not see any slugs in St. Lucia, but I tell you what, I did see mini frogs, small frogs, but I'm not going to go into that today because talking about slugs is already making this episode the most unstructured episode in history. But anyway, so slugs. I don't remember seeing slugs in London. I don't. I just don't. All I remember is my first experience with slugs, which was my first experience with slugs was in Colwyn Bay, North Wales. And that was that. So anyway, now I don't know, I think then after that experience, because I'm trying to think, I don't know when I could say I had this like formal, this official fear, but I then just remember just not liking them, and I didn't like the fact that they were still, you know, did not like the fact that they were still. Please know I don't have a fear of snails. In fact actually I eat snails. I've eaten, so in Nigeria we have these huge garden snails. It's like there's a dish with snails and stew, and you fry them. It's very nice. And I also like snails in the French context, French cuisine. So it's this fear of slugs is not related to snails. But anyway, um, so long story cut short, I used to have this absolute fear that slugs would all of a sudden just jump. That was always my fear. It didn't make sense to me that slugs were so still. So, um, yeah, that's just how that went. And over time, I think it would just manifest. So if let's say I was walking and then I would see a slug in the path in front of me, I would scream and I would be like trying to psych myself to walk around it or to jump over it. Meanwhile, the slug is just there, not moving. And part of my fear was that as I try to walk past the slug, jump over the slug, it will just jump on me and like jump on me and like a leech just cling on to me. Okay. Oh my gosh, this is a mess. Here we are. So fast forward now to that's just always been my fear. I even had a moment during my PhD. I lived in Norwich, and the house that I lived in, we had a garden. And I think this is a common thing for people who live in properties with a garden, because now I live in a flat where the creatures can't get me. But when you live in a property that has a garden, you the spiders, the slugs and stuff, they somehow find their way in, and that could be because if you obviously don't close the patio door, but just it just happens. And there was this day that I think I was just going, I came down the stairs and I was going into the sitting room. Now, the sitting room, um, there was a patio door that led into the garden from the sitting room. And as I was walking, I walked into the sitting room. I felt something or someone looking at me. And I turned round, and on the door, the sitting, like the door, there was a slug that somehow had found its way. Oh, and also at uni, gosh, I'm sorry, guys, I'm spiraling here a little bit. But at uni, yes, in there was a time because in Norwich, okay, it's still Norwich because that was PhD was after undergrad. But I remember also in undergrad because the some of the houses in Norwich they have the bathroom downstairs on the ground floor, and I had a slug there, and my flatmate had to come whilst I was on the loo. That was fun to get rid of the slugs because I was screeching and I was crying. So now fast forward to the slug PhD era slug. I turned around, I felt some eyes on me, and I saw it and I started screeching and screaming. And then what did I do? I called my mother in Nigeria. And I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. She's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? She was really panicking. She's like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And I was like, no, I'm not okay. There's a slug. She was like, what? was like, there's a slug. And she said, that's not really okay. And bless her, she really tried to calm me down. And I can't remember, I think I had to call somebody to help me get rid of the slugs. So that's the journey I've had with slugs. Now, when I don't remember why, I can't remember the journey, but I remember learning. So as of that, up to those experiences, I just was like, okay, it is really that fear that it's just going to jump. But so far, it's fine. I just knew there's slugs there. Then I do not remember what summer it was, but there were these. There was an issue with these Spanish. Well, it was a Spanish slug breed of slug that had somehow found its way into the UK, and I can't remember what had happened, but from what I've understood, and please somebody, if you know what I'm talking about, um, verify, just let me know, because I know that this has been 10 minutes of me, 11 minutes, gosh, it's going on, 10 minutes of me screeching about slugs. Um, and I know this is the most random of things, okay? But basically, oh, I'm looking at it now. Oh gosh, oh my gosh. So there was an issue, I can't remember what summer, that somehow these Spanish slugs that were comfortable with that they were able to survive. Sorry, I'm looking at photo. Oh my gosh. These Spanish slugs that were able to survive, so they liked the warmth, right? So the thing with slugs, what I've understood is in the UK, because the slugs don't like they like the cold, they don't like the heat, so they tend to hibernate or they hide or something, and essentially in the summer slugs don't survive and then they come out again in the winter. But whatever summer it was, I'm looking now, the internet is telling me it might have been 2018. That there was an issue that these slugs, Spanish slugs, were mutating were mating with the UK slugs and forming this like super hybrid slug. I know this is really not scientific, but please indulge me because I am losing the will to be professional right now. But essentially the Spanish slugs and the UK slugs had there's been some new species of slug in the UK that was that was able to survive the heat and also was a little bit more carnivorous because slugs are usually herbivores, they eat vegetation. But these slugs had oh my gosh, I'm looking at photos, this is so traumatic. It was like a super slug that was immune to drought, immune to poison, immune, and like they were just eating everything. And so there was a website that if you spotted a Spanish slug, which they were bigger and I think they were brown or something, oh, Jesus. Sorry guys. I'm so sorry for this episode. Here we are. Um, so yeah, there was an issue that these slugs, and I can't remember which organization, but there was like a search for, you had to, sorry, not a search. If you came across these slugs, you had to, they would like you to please, let people know what area they were in because it was actually becoming a issue. And these mutated slugs were taking over, and because they didn't have a natural enemy, so they were therefore able to grow and populate and so forth, and plants themselves had lost their defense against said slug. So it was just a lot going on. So that was a very traumatic summer. I think it might have been 2018, but I think no, I feel it was earlier than that. I don't remember the time, and I'm sorry, I don't have a point of reference, and I'm freaking out because I've typed in slug, and I'm learning more about slugs than I needed to. Um, so as you can tell, 14 minutes in, um, I did not like the slug. So this is just how my life has been going, and I just happened to be. I was speaking to one of my friends recently, and we were just talking about something, and somehow the topic of conversation, slugs, came up. And so I said to her that, oh, like my fear is that I know it's irrational. So I said, oh, and I know it's irrational, but it's the fear that the slug would jump, And she was like, oh, those exist. I was like, pardon? She said, "Oh yeah, 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 those exist. There are jumping slugs. They exist out there." And I was like, "No, no, 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 they don't. Please don't say that." And she was like, "No, you should Google it. Just go and have a look." And I did that. And yeah, they exist. They do exist. I'm gonna talk to you about that. Oh gosh, okay. I just had to take a break to finish the rest of my Mr. Freeze freeze pop to get through the rest of this episode. Okay. Whew. Okay, so my friend said that, oh yeah, 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 as I mentioned, she was like, yeah, 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 they're jumping slugs, like flying slugs. I was like, no, you're lying to me. I can't cope with this news. So I then used the word the Google the Google. Oh my gosh, a mess. I used Google, and Google told me that yes, jumping slugs exist. So jumping slugs, there are two. They're tiny species of slugs, and they said they're almost covered shells. So they are slugs, but they have a little shell. So does that not make them a snail? I don't know. They jump. That's all I know. So there's apparently the warty jumping slug, which is Hemphilia glandulosa. Oh, that sounds like Harry Potter. What's something leviosa? But anyway, so the warty jumping slug. Let's just focus on that. They are in Vancouver Island in Canada, and also can be found through Washington to West Central Oregon in United States. Where not to visit, Bahijja? And then you have the dromedary jumping slug, which is the Latin name is Hemphilia dromedarius. Oh, that sounds nice. All very Harry Potter sounding. And this occurs in the Vancouver Island, south, so Vancouver Island, Canada, south to Cascade Range and Olympic I can't speak, Peninsula in Western Washington. And so these are, I know that they were also present in the Pacific Northwest forest, and that's also really where these slugs are home to. Now, they are rare, and actually, um, apparently they suspect they're actually prone to they're at risk of being endangered. Now, don't get me wrong, as much as slugs freak me out, and as I said, I'm 17 minutes in, and it's just yeah, it's a lot. As much as I'm scared of them, I don't want them to be endangered. Like, that's not nice. But they are a very rare species, and they do jump, sort of, but they jump. Now, apparently, they're only about half an inch long. That is still quite big. I think that's still quite big. Sorry, I'm just freaking out. Um, and they are quite camouflaged as well. And even though, like most slugs, they're slow and slimy, um, and so forth, but these species of slug, they they tend to they kind of move around like a fish out of water. They don't get very big in the air, but they can, like, they might fall off a branch or a leaf. So that's what they do. They'll just do that, and they break free from their own slime trail to throw like a hungry predator off their scent. So they are trying to keep alive. That's what that's what they are trying to do. There are loads of clips on YouTube about these slugs, these jumping slugs. Um and they sort of it is quite interesting. I've been been able to watch a couple of videos badly, but it was just interesting because I've had such a fear of slugs being able to jump, and some of the literature I saw is that they are referred to as like semi slugs, these slugs, because they're halfway between being snails, because they do have a small shell, like a half shell. So like semi slugs, halfway between being a snail and a slug, essentially. And apparently slugs are snails whose ancestors got rid of all or most of their shells at some point in their evolution. I'm not quite clear how the jumping slugs, what, actually, I was about to say I wasn't quite sure how their evolutionary advantage to be able to jump. But as I mentioned earlier, they actually do jump to get rid of their to throw their predators off scent. So I mentioned two species, but actually there are at least six species within the Pacific Northwest. They don't appear to occur in any other part of the world, any other area in the world. So they are very special, which is also why they are endangered. So as I said, as much as I am super anxious and oh, it's been hard doing this episode, sorry. But they are an endangered species, and it's what has been really nice actually researching this is to see the amount of information that is available out there, the care, the way, like the conservation efforts and things like that. It is really nice. So what's interesting is that as like people bird watch, but actually people slug watch in this region. And they say like you have to look for them one leaf at a time. You tend to find them on the forest floor. um and so yeah, so the moral of this story, of this episode, is not all irrational fears are irrational. I had an irrational fear that slugs could jump. I was just looking at the wrong species, and they can jump. um I don't really want to go into more about this, but yeah, jumping slugs exist. It was an irrational fear. Now I can just call it a fear because it's not quite irrational because they can jump. So what fears do you have about anything really? And did you think they were irrational first and then you also found out that actually no, they're not irrational, they're real? Feel free to get in touch. Let's share, let's bond over this. You can email me info@mondaysciencepodcast.com. You can drop me a DM in the Monday Science Instagram or Twitter, as well as my Instagram as well, Dr Bahijja Raimi-A. So thank you. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'm not editing this at all, so this was raw emotion. Enjoy. Thank you. Bye.